And you're live, David.
Well, thanks for joining us today for our November edition of our Education Technology Leaders webcast. We now call them virtual meetings. I'm David Couch with the Department of Education. I have a variety of our Office of Education Technology staff, and of course we have folks throughout Kentucky in these education technology positions that are joining us today. Thanks for joining us. I want to remind you we posted. I sent the agenda about an hour ago, and it had the listing of the Go Soapbox questions along with how to log into what we're doing with Go Soapbox. And so I'd ask you to take a look at that. We also sent a summary of last month, so we won't be covering all those items in detail again. Yeah. And with Go Soapbox, it gives us the capability of things that bubble up to the top to address them. We also have some special guests that will be joining us today, and have already joined us from Covington Independent Schools and Jefferson County Schools, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And also had an opportunity to get your feedback of things that you wanted to have us covered. So let me go back to the very beginning and just give you some good news first before we introduce our districts that are with us today. We got news that we were planning for an 8% budget cut with our Office of Education Technology. And that was KDY for services that we provide. We call shared services to our school districts. And so any kind of cut to us, they feel directly, or you can say indirectly, but they impact it. So ours was going to be mainly impacted by the Kentucky Education Technology System KETS offers of assistance that we send to districts, and they match equally. We had planned for a $21 offer before we got that news, and gave districts and let them brace for it could be down to $17. The good news is the budget came in better. The revenue came in better than was expected, and it's not that it's down to zero, but it's not going to be the full $8 per student cut, or 8% cut, I should say, 8% cut. So what it may mean is instead of $21 offer, it may be a 20 or 19. It's even possible to be the 21. We are still going to go forth with, and have to, because it's not with 100% certainty will be zero, with the first offer of $7.50 per student. And hopefully that can be brought up back to $9. Mike Lettingham or Amy, is there anything else I need to say about that? You don't have to join, but there's not, I'll let you.
No, I think that's good enough, David, what the status of that is.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So that's good news for all of us, and it's just not our office, just for the other offices that provide services to our districts. Next up is a heartbeat from the field. We have three parts of this one. One is we're going to ask two districts to kind of talk about how things have been playing out over the past several months, providing us words of wisdom and lessons learned, and what do they think they've, what we're going through will actually stay beyond these years. And it's a format that I've heard our new commissioner, I've watched our new commissioner use, Commissioner Glass, that you use within the superintendents, and I liked it. I actually had 3 or 4 of them. I kind of given an update how it's playing out, so it helps us and it gives us feedback directly with our Office of Education Technology, but it will be helpful to you all, I believe. And the other part of what we're going to do is, as you know, every month there's certain stats that we're interested in. I know we went last month through the digital readiness, which was a very comprehensive review of where all the districts were at, a large variety of education technology items. But there are 1 or 2 in particular that we need to keep up with that's related to us being able to do distance and virtual and remote teaching and learning, because that's going to be part of the at least this school year. It's already been part of it. It's going to be part of the second half of the school year as well. Either 100% or some large percent of the students that are doing it virtually. So far, it's been 30 to 40% for certain districts. Other districts have been 100%. So we need that heartbeat information. And we're going to talk about just the differences that have been made since May, June, October, and November, as far as internet access beyond the school campus and devices beyond the school campus. This is something that I, besides our student technology leadership program, which are my favorite days, favorite 10 days. If you look at the regionals and the state championship, my work days that we do this. The other part of my favorite part of the job is actually going to a district and learning about that district. And usually we stay the previous night there, and I get to learn about the whole, the whole county, the whole community. And that's been a fun thing for me to do for decades. And I've learned a lot about the state of Kentucky in doing that, but also I learned a lot about the district in doing that. What I wanted to do is just give a small subset of that by highlighting, and I talked about this last month, highlighting districts across the state and getting some feedback from them, be helpful to us and helpful to you all. So this morning I have joining me the superintendent of Covington Independent Schools, Alvin Garrison, the assistant superintendent, Scott Alter, and the CIO EdTech leader, Jamarcus White, will be giving us an update. And then our CIO from Jefferson County, Kermit Belcher, will be giving us an update as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Garrison for you to introduce yourself and your staff and give us an update. How's it going out there?
Hello, greetings, Associate Commissioner Couch. We really appreciate you allowing us to talk through some of our challenges and barriers and successes with technology improvements and infrastructure improvements in our district. You'll see that Director White has a great background of our high school and our campus. So if anyone's not familiar with where we are like directly across the bridge from Cincinnati. I'm talking where the northernest most part of the state, directly across the bridge. From my house, I can see the Cincinnati skyline. So I did bring Director White and our Assistant Superintendent of Learning Support, Scott Alter. And rather than me bore you with all the details, I brought the folks that can give you firsthand knowledge, the folks that's led us through this. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Director White will discuss the technology piece, and then Mr. Alter will give a brief overview of the learning support piece, and then we'll address any questions. So Director White, it's your show, sir. Your mic's not on. Your mic's not on.
Look at those rookie mistakes on the big stage. Good morning, folks. Good morning. Appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to speak today. And like Mr. Garrison said, update you all on the kind of the challenges and some of the successes that we've had. So we going into this, and actually prior to this COVID shocking everyone's world here, we were already wanting to try to address access, infrastructure, connectivity. Kind of the gift and the curse, if you would say, has been COVID, because we've got a lot of support due to COVID kind of shocking the whole world with you all at KDE. We've got a lot of board support, a lot of city support. So a couple things we wanted to address going into this. Once we got that call to kind of pull all the troops in from, I remember back in March from Kisti, we rallied everybody up and started working on a plan to address the NTI. We know we had to get more devices in students' hands. We were already a one-to-one district, 6 through 12, but we know we had to address our kindergarten through 5th grade. So with the support of the board and with the support of the CARES funding, we were able to purchase 1,050 iPads that we are still waiting on, but they will be arriving here soon. I know I hear some boos in the background from folks who are dealing with Apple right now, but we are hoping that we get those devices in before Thanksgiving, and that'll kind of address some of those needs at the elementary level. Because of that back order, everyone was purchasing devices. We were waiting on those devices. We actually had to reach out to a local vendor and rent some devices. And so we've established some good local partnerships here in Covington to kind of address some of the needs that we've had, to make sure we can get things out as quickly as possible to address those needs. We also looked at getting some hotspots through T-Mobile, through some of their initiatives, through their partnership. We were to address some of those connectivity issues that some of our students and families are having right now. And then one of the biggest things, I know Mr. Garrison can probably speak on it too, is partnering with the city of Covington and the mayor here with providing free access citywide for the next 5 years, putting in infrastructure for the city of Covington. And when we worked with the city of Covington, we were able to give them some information so that we can try to target as many of our families as possible, so that we can try to make sure that our students were not necessarily getting firsthand, but we wanted to make sure that when they were putting in this infrastructure, we gave them the information that they needed to try to address and try to target some of our students as well with the free hotspots. So that project is still going on. I know I've been seeing fiber being strung up everywhere. I know they were still looking for families or businesses to agree to allow those hotspots to be installed on some of their buildings or on their poles that may be in their yards. But for the most part, things are going. I know 2 of our housing authorities are up and going right now. They're up and running. Those families are being served. Our students are being served with that Covington Partnership Initiative. And so we're getting there. I know December, I think, is a target for things to be completed. It may be even into the first of the year next year, but I know we're getting close, and I know that the feedback that I'm getting from families and from students is that they're able to connect their district issue devices, their own devices, with either the city initiative or our initiative through T-Mobile, or we even have United Way working with Cincinnati Bell. We've got a great system where we're our folks over at Covington Partners are working to make sure that families are being identified. No one's being double booked, if you would say. We're making sure that we're getting the devices in the students' hands as far as hotspots connectivity, or they're getting the United Way with Cincinnati Bell partnership. So we've got a lot of things going on. I'm excited about the things that we do have going on, because even after COVID is gone, the things that we're putting in place right now are going to be there to stay. So, Mr. Alter, if you're on, I'd like you to speak on that blended learning system and what we got going on with the other platforms, with Edgenuity and our camera system.
Good morning, everybody. Like I said, my name's Scott Alter, and I'm the assistant superintendent, and I work with learning support. I guess one of the biggest things, starting back in March when we were all thrown into this, like everybody else, we threw together a program in about 48 hours, which for K through 6 included a lot of packets because we didn't have the infrastructure in place for that. And then with 6 through 12, we actually 6 through 8, we did not go one-to-one at that time because that was not in our culture, but we did have the computers. 9 through 12, we were one-to-one, so we were in a better position there. So right away, we kept that program going where we just had the packets, and we knew we had to plan for the future there. So we started looking at what would a blended learning environment look like for our district. So basically, everything that we were doing, like Jamarcus said, with connectivity and one-to-one and things we were working on for our district, everything we were trying to put in place, we were trying to make sure this is something that we can continue to use when we come out of this, not a one-time hit. And then, but we wanted to get things that would further our blended learning environment for our students. And like Jamarcus said, coming out of this crisis or pandemic, I think this is going to help Covington get closer to being a blended learning environment. So like I said, everything that we're doing, we're trying to make sure we do it for the future. So I'll just tell you a couple of the programs that we trained on over the summer. And we've only had initial training on these, but our 6 through 12 were originally, they were working with Edgenuity. And then, so we had some experience there. But we needed more training, so we got that training in place, and we've had initial training for everything there for Edgenuity. we needed a program for our elementary schools that hit the Kentucky academic standards. So the one we chose and we're working on is right with Unity, which is Odysseyware. At this time we've had initial training, and we definitely have some bumps in the road, and we are trying to figure those out. And so far so good. But the teachers really it's being slow for them to take to these LMS systems due to the fact that they basically want their kids back. And I think with further training, I think they're going to these will become part of our culture, a small part of our culture. They will never replace our teachers, but these blended learning programs, I think, will have an advantage in the future for lots of different reasons. One of the things we try to make sure we're doing is we're focusing. What we're trying not to do is overburden our parents with multiple programs. Too many programs in the home, too many apps, too many. We're trying to limit that. We've been very clear with our principals. Here are the programs we're going to use, because I know as a parent, I have 4 children of my own, and they've all been on NTI. So it is very frustrating, I know. I'm glad I had that experience so I could take that to the job and try to make sure that parents out there are not being frustrated with multiple programs. So we have Lexia Core 5 as our reading intervention, and Lexia Power Up as our reading intervention. Lexia Core 5 for our primary K through 5, and for our high school and middle school, we have Lexia Power Up. So we're trying to really embed that and develop monitoring groups for that, because we know we need that for our reading, for our students, and it's the best shot we have being in a remote environment with our kids. A couple new things we're using. One of the things is called FEV tutoring. FEV tutoring. That is a system right now that we're piloting in our high school. And also we're going to be using in one of our elementary schools and our middle school. Middle school and elementary, one of our elementary schools are CSI. So we're going to pilot those there in our high school. It's a tutoring program that is an on-demand tutoring program, 24/7, and kids can access it at any time for any reason. For tutoring, I need help with something, and it also can be set up to have set lessons with kids. This is starting to work for us. It's been a few weeks, but it's starting to gain ground. There's been a lot of meetings with the community and different partners we have to try to get this rolling with our kids. But we're starting to see some progress. It's very slow, but we're starting to get kids to use it. So we just see that as another opportunity to get into the homes of our kids and give our parents and our kids some support. So like I said, we're piloting FEV Tutor right now and seeing how that works. So far, we're seeing some good things, but small gains. And the last program I want to tell you about, or not program, but system that we've put in place in a very small basis is blended units. They're audio enhancement blended units. They're cameras and audio in one system. These systems can be portable. What we've done is we've taken these systems and we've bought 40 of them, and we've placed them in as many classrooms, kindergarten through 12th grade, as we can. I think at the elementary level, we've tried to hit at least one elementary classroom, K through 5, and then different subjects. And then the middle school, we tried to hit, for example, 6th grade math, 6th grade English, and then up to high school, the same thing. So we're hoping that these systems are another way for us to they can live stream into the homes of the students, or the teachers can record and we can place these recordings on Google Classroom or whatever. We're at the very beginning stages of training on these, but we're hoping to get this system in place. And again, that's audio enhancement. They're blended units. So this is another way we're trying to get our teachers into the homes of our students who are remote. And again, this is another thing that we hope as we move on through this is something that we can use for Covington for the future of blended learning for our students. So I went through those pretty quickly for you. So if anybody had any questions or information on those, we'll definitely help you out.
So I want to thank you all, and we'll ask someone to take a look at our Go Soapbox if you can hang around just a little bit, because I'm going to go on to Jefferson in just a minute. But I have used you all in a very positive way as examples throughout this time. What you did in the partnership with like United Way, with the city of Covington, with the mayor Joe Meyer there, what you did with your CARES money. It was a combination, with T-Mobile, is a combination of a lot of different folks making good things happen for people that needed good things to happen for them in a short period of time. And I also use you all as examples. You did have approach for middle school and high schoolers, and you've had to address the elementary schoolers along with this at a very, very fast pace. What's been interesting is we've had some master plan. We have an education technology master plan. We have 36 different areas areas of improvement, areas of acceleration. Well, this has accelerated a lot of things much faster. We've gotten one-to-one much faster. We got a higher percentage of teachers that are using technology in instruction much faster. So I didn't want a pandemic to cause this. But as you're saying, there are really plus sides in the longer term to where we've turned, some of these things you cannot stop doing, by the way. People always want, if they can't travel long distance, say, can we not just have a virtual option for those that can't travel? So there's going to be a part of this that sticks around. But you all are like what we have done. You are planning just not for the interim, but longer term with the software package you're picking, because there would be some form of NTI or NTI Lite going forward. There'll be homebound students who you're going to be interested in reaching. And now you have a way to do those beyond a pandemic. Like I said, it shouldn't take a pandemic to do that, but there's some great plus sides to do that. And you all are a good model of how to handle it. You're not 100% perfect. You're not claiming to be 100% perfect. None of us are. But I've been really impressed of all the different angles you're going in a very short period of time. And I'm hoping, NTI 2.0 has been better than NTI 1.0 for you all. Do you see that as an improvement? Because I know we're all struggling with, you're the connectedness with the student for this experience amount of time. What is it that, that you've learned from 2.0 that is better than 1.0?
I think I'll address some of our questions. And again, we thank you for allowing us to speak out. But I think as Mr. Alter and Mr. White alluded to, I think we are not where we need to be with all of this. We learned from this past spring back in March that we needed to move aggressively towards reaching our goals because we were not prepared for the pandemic in March. And I think the biggest learning, is the need to be able to provide learning 24/7 for students, to be able to provide an outreach to, at one time I was at a speaking event and we talked about, and what I talked about is, I don't know about the rest of you, but I use technology I use it to read the newspaper in the morning. I use it to like a friend or to chat with others virtual. I use technology to, my wife uses it to shop. We use it for banking. We use technology for everything. So when thinking in terms of our students and the idea of maybe them not having access to technology or computer or internet, it's like the dark ages. It's like we went back to prehistoric because I use this computer for everything I do, to check in, to communicate, to read, to educate, to pay bills, to bank. Again, we do a lot of shopping on these things, and this is the day of the future, and we have to adapt. So I think for some of those old educators like myself and some of those old teachers, yes, this has been a huge second order change, but it was a needed change,
Right.
a definite needed change. And so if we can say, like you said, one good thing about the pandemic, it forced us to go places that might have taken us another 20, 30 years to get to without this. So it's pushed us along.
Thank you. Thank you, Copy Team. If you can just be on standby for a little bit here, Case, and I'll ask our team to see if they have questions later on. Kermit, thanks for joining us. Kermit, of course, the CIO of our largest district in the state, but also, he's been a CIO of a very rural, kind of a mid-size district in Eastern Kentucky. So you bring both those kind of perspectives to it. So Kermit, what can you share with us today, words of wisdom and that you have through this past 7 or 8 months?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and just to reiterate what you've been saying, and this has forced us to move a lot faster where we need to be, and so our district was not 1-to-1, and it would been so much simpler if we were. But if this hasn't advocated for every student to have a device in this time, then I don't know what will. So there's been a lot of support in getting devices in the hands of our kids. We've actually deployed over 65,000 instructional devices to our students since March, and so. That's been a challenge. Dr. Lisa Rebel and her team has done a remarkable job working with our schools to do that. And also, KDE's been talking about having cloud-based systems for years, and putting districts in a position to be able to be where we're at for this to be successful. And it's helped us to move a couple milestones that we needed to move regardless. So, just having those cloud-based systems versus on-prem and continue to move forward on that. The last mile internet has been, as far as closing the digital divide, it's been, as a CIO, I never really wanted to be in the internet service provider business, and it's not something we're really even equipped to do. But for our kids, that's something we had to do, and that's something we had to make sure that those students had access to those devices. We've actually deployed 11,500 hotspots to our students, and so that's been a huge undertaking. And the last mile, just getting the RFP from the state level and help with the funding has been a huge help with that. So I have a whole list. I'll go through it pretty quick.
Okay.
But yeah, stop me if you want to just interject on that. But we've also deployed Relay Agent and content filtering off-prem. We've never done that before as far as content filtering from home. So we've deployed Relay to all of our student devices. We're in talks about doing that with our staff, and and hopefully Phil Coleman can help us, and make sure that's a success. But the deployment for our students has gone extremely well. Analytics, Scott Alter talked a lot about blended learning, and from an instructional standpoint, I really feel like our students, our staff, we're all going to be better equipped after this when we're able to come back, on-prem and brick and mortar. And so, we've been doing things like we've never been able to do before from an analytics standpoint. Now we have insight into analytics such from Brightbytes, Lightspeed, Clever. So we're actually able to have that insight into what students are using, how much how much time they're spending on it, how much we're spending on the software, and the impact, and working toward the impact. And so that's so important to be able to give that to teaching and learning, and for them to help analyze that data. And this has also brought our teams together from teaching and learning, working and making sure, David's always talked about technology, IT having a seat at the table. It's never been more important for IT to have a seat at the table, and also collaborating. The digital learning coaches, and thanks Dr. Park and those involved in helping getting funding to the digital learning coaches. Heather Worrell, and she leads our digital learning coaches. And, without them, I don't know where we would be. I mean, they've, from a digital learning channel, we have a digital learning channel. You can imagine trying to conduct professional development and training and things like that virtually. We have the digital learning channel through YouTube. And so they, conduct that, and then you can watch it live, or you can go back and rewatch it. And so that's, kind of like Kentucky Go Digital, that's been, throughout Kentucky for a few years now. They're also doing Minecraft for Education on Chromebooks, the Backpack of Success Skills. And so, a lot of those from an instructional standpoint has been, from our success. Also, from technical, like KD, just the support. Sometimes, until you have an issue, it's not really an issue, but just the support from having the firewall and the infrastructure from KD that's always been there, the standardization on the systems, the operations, the cybersecurity, that part of, you see a lot of things going across the nation. And, fortunately, in Kentucky, we've been really fortunate to be able to avoid a lot of that. So those are a lot of things that are going well. Challenges in our district. I mean, that list could be twice as long. But the sustainable model for internet access, we talked about, the last mile internet, but having a sustainable model for now. I've always advocated for every student having a device, and also, now it's really a need, it's a necessity for every student to have internet access at home. And how do communities, how do organizations have, how do we get internet service providers the ability for families to have access at home? And so that's a need, and it's something I think all districts are challenged with right now, and also having a sustainable model, for that. I feel like to us, hotspots is a stopgap. It's an interim solution, but we need to really have a long-term solution. Other challenges we have is like for our CTE programs, career tech, we're accessing, things like AutoCAD and Adobe, things like that from home. And we've been, Microsoft and Google have been good partners. We're, using some things like Citrix to help with that. Repairs, break fix, loss, adapters, all those are issues. Raghu, who lives our infrastructure team. I mean, they've done an amazing job upgrading our network infrastructure and overseeing a lot of the repairs. And working with Chuck Austin and our team, we're doing a huge network up. Our network needed to be upgraded, so never a better time for our network infrastructure to be upgraded while kids are working virtually. So we're lucky about that. And one of the biggest, again, Scott had mentioned this too, about so many different softwares, and vetting software vendors has been, we've been able to trying to limit and vet the types of instructional software that that the district is recommending, but there's so many opportunities out there for downloading apps, extensions, and just making sure those are safe and secure. That's a constant battle. So I know that was a long list, and I went through it really quick, but those are some of the things that has really worked well in our district, and then some of the challenges that we continue to work on. So,
thanks, Kermit. I'm going to let take a question here from Michael Boyd here in just a second. I told our staff in the month of thanks what's going on. I was thankful for, obviously, as you all, your teams that are around you that help make good things happen for students. I think, my Office of Education Technology staff is just like you're crediting your staff for coming through. As I'm in the middle of my 29th year at the Department of Education, and you've heard me talk about so many things I'm proud of over the past 29 years, but the past 8 months of what we've done, there's not a time I'm more proud. It took the work all those years beforehand, but the way we reacted in those 8 months, far from 100% perfect, but it's the proudest work I've ever done. So I appreciate all you out in the districts that help make that happen, just like we have some district folks here. I would get questions from my staff of how our goals have changed. And, with our CATS master plan, actually, we've executed everything. We just thought we had years to do it, not 6 months. That's the change. And nothing was taken off the table. We still had to do all the other stuff, plus do this full court press, right? And while we always will have our critics that are lined up, it's pretty amazing what we've all done together in this short period of time. I'm pretty proud of it. I know we still have work to do. We're far from 100% perfect, but I say this is the proudest I've been of the work I've done and been involved with, the people I'm involved with, the way we've reacted. Other states, waved the white flag at the end of last school year, says we can't finish. We finished. And we said, how can we make it even better the next go around? And if it's hard, 100% perfect, and we all wish we all could be together, we have done extremely well and extremely well positioned compared. And I talked to my peers, the other 49 states. If Kentucky is not the leader, it's in the top 2 or 3 of what we've done. And so very proud of it and very proud of being associated with all you. And be honest with you, all your predecessors that helped make this possible. Kermit, you were talking about the cloud. That's been a 10-year transition. And Kentucky was the best position of the 50 states in order to do that, to pivot over to do that. So I wanted to take a question. Michael Boyd, you had a question that you wanted to ask, and it can be of either one or both.
No, it was an accidental hand raise. I'm sorry.
All right. That's good.
David, I prefer to use that as a high five instead of a hand raise.
High five.
Michael Boyd, which, by the way, I was doing while the Covington team, thank you for sharing, and Dr. Belcher, you were connecting the ideas of what students are spending time on in terms of usage and adoption. And then, Mr. Alter, you got into the point about focusing on a specific set of tools and resources so that your parents had levels of comfort. And I just, as we move forward, we've all across the state, that's something that we continue to emphasize and push on. So we high five all the way through that. David, we do have one question through Go Soapbox for the Covington team. Okay. And as a reminder for folks, we do have Go Soapbox open with 6 questions, but also the social questions coming in. What techniques are most useful? And this is directly for the Covington team. What techniques are most useful in helping teachers adapt successfully?
I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Alter. So, Mr. Alter, you're on the spot there, buddy. That's delegation.
That's what a good leader does.
So, and that's something that I should have said as I went through each, the LMSs, the intervention we're using for reading, the FEV tutor, the audio enhancement, every single one of those things that we've done affects our teachers. So every single bit of the way we have to figure out, and I think I'm answering this question correctly, but how are we going to implement the PD? Is it can they handle it right now? Is it too soon? When do we do the next round of professional development? So I'll just give you one example. We did our LMS training, and with Odysseyware, which was brand new for our teachers, and there's been a lot of speed bumps and teachers learning and frustrations, and we're working those out. But one of the strategies we're putting together for that is Odysseyware has been working very collaboratively with us. We're opening up a question and answer kind of doc on Google Drive where teachers can 24/7 have questions in there. And we've set up the reps from Odysseyware and Ingenuity to be in there. And we've set up different trainings. We have a training website, kind of like what Dr. Belcher was talking about. Ours is not as like YouTube or anything, but we have access to mini trainings for everything that we've initially trained our teachers on. Right now we're putting audio, and I'll just say everything that we've done, we have to really be careful and feel the climate and how our because they're the ones that have to implement it. So we're being very careful about how hard we push everything that we're putting into our schools, and we're trying to count on our survey information. Right now, we're getting ready to put out a Bright Bites survey to get more information, and just being very careful with our teachers and trying to get hear their voice.
Thank you. Thank you for all joining us. We're going to go on to the next topic. If you can go on to stand by, there may be some other questions that we have throughout here. So, and there's a couple of these Go Soapbox questions I may circle back to you all to answer from your all perspective. Since I have, a couple of you here on live and from different perspectives, leading different angles here. But this has been wonderful. Appreciate you all. Appreciate what you've done and been doing in your districts during this school year thus far and last school year. So I'm going to ask Chuck Austin to speak next. This is also we call Heartbeat. We talked about last month the digital readiness of Kentucky K-12 for this school year, but there's a couple of data elements that we need to be updated more frequently on, particularly the end devices. As Covington gave an example, they still got some that are outstanding, and I've heard the superintendent talk about that, and hopefully by December, all this comes together for you. The last mile's there, and the devices are all in. I've heard you say that in a couple of different settings. So it changes every month. So for 99% of data elements in digital readiness, it's fine to do a snapshot. I use that for a variety of things, including the upcoming legislative session that starts in January. It's one of the key components I use, along with the feedback that we get at the end of every year about the things we did well, not well, and what should our goals be going forward. But there's a couple of these that it changes so often, and people are so interested in internet access beyond the school campus and the devices that our field staff are getting an update on it. And I was on the phone with them or on a meeting with them yesterday, and we were going over why has there been such a tremendous increase even from October to November. There has been, but there are some things that are causing it to happen. So Chuck, I'm going to let you give an update because I want to make sure I tell all the districts that are on here, thank you for your cooperation in doing that. I know your lives are super busy with work and at home, but this is something that folks are constantly interested in this topic. So Chuck, can you give us an update on that?
Sure, David, absolutely. Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. And, as we've heard already this morning, this is the big conversation that everybody's having. Okay. And David, just to kind of back the conversation up a little bit and just to refresh maybe some of our new folks that are out there, our digital readiness survey that we wrapped up just a couple of months ago really serves three very important purposes. Okay. Number one, it helps us establish one of the critical unmet need components that we need to issue offers of assistance. Okay. So we look at that almost as an inventory in establishing unmet need. It allows districts to do some really awesome comparative analysis of their neighbors based on culture, based on size, based on a couple of different variables. And it also allows us the opportunity, which is so critical, especially during this time, to identify some trends, okay, that we see that are starting to pop, and more importantly, to react to those. And David, as you've stated over the years, a lot of times the data that we've received from the Digital Readiness Survey has helped us pivot programmatically as a technology program to things like G Suite for Education, the move to Gmail, the adoption of Chromebooks, okay, which obviously, okay, we've seen widespread success across the program. That being said, the problem with the digital readiness that you've pointed out already is it's a frozen in time snapshot, okay, which is okay, and it's awesome, and it serves us well in what I'm going to call a normal time. But obviously, as we've all talked about today, we have not been normal now for several months due to a variety of factors, specifically the pandemic. And, the pandemic has pushed all of us, everybody at the local level, the state level, and the federal level to really be agile with a lot of the things that we've talked about today. And David, I also want to put up, big hats off to everybody. Your ability to be agile, your ability to pivot on a dime has been amazing, and we applaud that. And one of the items that we've all talked about this morning that we've got to continually react to and continually address is helping identify the students that we know are disadvantaged when it comes to a virtual format. All right, so that being said, I want to continue to emphasize that student access beyond the school campus will always be what I consider a village responsibility to solve. Okay, and from my perspective, the village is it's home, It's community, and the community is obviously partners, service providers, and other institutions, as well as K-12. And K-12 has a responsibility in that, and that's where you see this heartbeat survey spin from. So knowing that there's a lot of pressure points, there's a lot of people asking questions, and there's actually a great question that just got posed a few minutes ago, David, out on Goat Soapbox. And it's actually a statement. And it asks, is KDE using its muscle with politicians to get them to understand how important high-speed internet is in rural areas? Well, the answer to that question is absolutely. And David, here in a second, I'm going to finish up because I want you to talk about all the different groups that you're having to speak with, interface with, answer to, okay, as you're juggling chainsaws, and that's an internal joke that we've got. But that really points to the criticality of the heartbeat data, okay? We need to know, and we need to know frequently, as often as possible, how well K-12 is doing at stepping up to the plate to solve their part of the problem of access away from the school campus, not only from a device perspective, but access to the internet, because we all know now and we all recognize those two go hand in hand. So that's a process that the field staff are going to keep moving through on a monthly basis. And we're going to keep doing that for probably, I'm going to say, David, the next 6 months at least, because ultimately we want to be able to demonstrate, as we talked about a month ago, K-12's doing their part. We're doing everything we can to climb that mountain of access. And now, obviously, David, in the role that you're sitting in, and obviously with superintendents we have around the state, our CIOs, the more pressure we can continue to place on service providers, the legislature at the federal level and the state level, the better we're all positioned to help close that gap. So, David, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I just wanted to touch upon the importance of the heartbeat data, the fact that we're going to continue following that process for the next couple of months, and the criticality of having everybody participate in that.
Thanks, Chuck. I think a number statewide, and I know we have X number of districts that are above this. I think it's just above 3% that don't have internet beyond the school campus to do schoolwork, and I think it's that right at 2%. Did I have that right for the devices themselves? Is that the range? Okay. Mm-hmm. And we know there's districts at zero as well. And as Chuck said, this is on the radar screen. I'm constantly asked by a variety of groups about this topic. I would think for any decision maker and leader, whether it be the superintendent there at Covington and or us in the CIO roles, is trying to determine the true magnitude of the issue. Is this a 99% broke for 99%, 1% broke for 1%? Even if it's 1% broke, you're identifying, well, how do we address that 1%? But what you're trying to see is when you're hearing it, you can't tell whether something's 50 or 60% broke. So a lot of time and energy we're spending on is, what is the true magnitude? And for us, what we spent time on since March, to be honest with you, is what is the accuracy of the data that we have? Back in March, we estimated that it was somewhere between 9 and 15%. And we have a variety of ways that we collect that information. But we estimated 9 or 15% did not have internet access at or close to their home in order to do schoolwork. We gave out a survey in the June timeframe, and I'll bring up that survey here in just a minute. And that showed that actually that number was much smaller. As we've gone through the months of October to November, it got even smaller. So when I got our field staff together yesterday, I asked them, why has that significantly improved so much in a short period of time? What has led to that? I mean, even from a district going from this pretty large percentage down to a very small percentage, I think, and I'll put it in chunks here. I think a really large percent of this chunk is our data is much more accurate. Districts are now spending a lot more time on what specific students have it and don't have it than they ever have before. They may have been estimating 25 or 30%. What we found when they actually tracked it down, the percentage was significantly better that students had it than they were estimating, which is a good thing. I mean, that was probably 90% what I saw before. It was significantly better. So, like 10% it was worse, but 90% it was better. But the good news is they're now trying to track by specific student who has it, doesn't have it. For example, who's sending packets home in paper form. That's a pretty good indicator who probably doesn't have it. It's not a 100% indicator, but it's a pretty good indicator. So I think a big part of the improvement has been just the accuracy of it. They're specifically counting what students have it and don't have it. We also are running into, and that's why we're wanting to get that updated every month. Some of its accuracy is getting better. Districts are getting much more serious about who has it and doesn't have it, as they recognize this is going to be part of our environment for the next, 5 or 6 months, at least. We don't know how much next school year, but we know virtual is going to be a big part of what we're doing for the next 5 or 6 months. So it's forced them to really see what students have it and don't have it. The last one is the last mile devices coming in. Just ordering them, not being in. And so I went through yesterday with districts of they're just not in yet. And hopefully that gets addressed in the December timeframe for just not Covington, but for a large variety of school districts. The other one is we're seeing, and this is a small percentage, I'll bring up one here in a second, is the community is offering spots that they didn't have before. And Covington mentioned some of those as well. That's not a big gap, and we like to have it as close to the home as possible, but that's been addressed. We've also found, unfortunately, through this, that there are X% of parents that don't want digital at their home, even though there's an option. And there's been a hotspot that's offered, and the parent doesn't want the hotspot. That's reality. They don't want it, they want it on paper form. That's a small percentage, and I think that will get smaller as the years go on. But that is a reality that keeps, even though the district is offering every parent an option, there are X% of parents that says, I don't want that option, which is really unfortunate. But they're wanting to stay on paper, and that's being recognized. And there's another option I'm going to share with you a little bit with Kentucky Educational Television. And we're trying to reach all the tools in the toolbox, is one for the short term and for the longer term. And that's, unfortunately, when I sent out the agenda, this should be item 5.5, and actually I had it listed down. So we were going to talk about this after we talk about some of the CARES funding. So I'm going to give you an update on what Kentucky Educational Television, with its wireless digital signal, can do to reach certain homes that do not have any internet access at all. And much like what you all were talking about in Covington and in Jefferson County, you're doing things just not for the short term, but for the long term. And this could perhaps be a tool in the toolbox for asynchronous learning, of providing content to students at home without the student having to drive to the school and sync some thumb drive, or get a thumb drive, or get paper. Offers real promise for the next decade, to be honest with you, that I want to share with you. I've been in discussions with KT, was with them yesterday with our staff at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And just wanted to make some proposals to going forward to try to put that in place. So I wanted to share that, but it's a variety of options are out there. We've also seen, as Chuck, I think the numbers we had since June is 35,000 or 30,000 have come in since June. And we had another 50,000-ish, or maybe it's close to 60,000 that were due in. So we're going to have close to a million computers in Kentucky K-12. And we're going to have nearly, yes, a million. Have near, a one-to-one down the elementary school level. Never really wanted to accelerate it for this purpose. And there'll be mobile devices. And to give you a feel for that, that's 10 times larger than the rest of all Kentucky state government and all local governments combined. That's how big K-12 is compared to all the other government organizations in Kentucky in the scale of magnitude. And so that'll bring us in those numbers. So that's why we're constantly trying to get an update on what those numbers are. Any other comments about that? Yes.
Yeah, David, just real quick, you may also want to give our district technology staff a timeout, a breather on the sidelines, because based on the digital readiness survey that was a snapshot as of June 30th, we added about 100,000 more devices just from last year. Yeah. And to your point, since that snapshot, we've added almost another 90, or will be adding almost another 90,000 devices to the environment. With, oh, by the way, no more additional technology staff. So yes, folks, I see Scott's head nodding. Okay, I mean it's been.
I would say the tough. Superintendent needs to give some love there to Jamarcus and to Scott, because that is a tremendous load. And the CEOs know here that know this. I constantly talk about that. I don't want to underestimate that. Chuck, thanks for doing it. Is this going to a one-to-one so fast and so quickly with typically the tiny staffs and overworked staffs of these districts, which I recommend for both these districts. In Covington, you have 10, 20% more staff there for the technology staff. Why we got Jamarcus on the line here, and I'm sure he would appreciate that. But seriously, they have done heroic stuff. I mean, it is heroic, and I know the amount of effort it takes to do that. So, Chuck, thanks for doing that and give me a way to recognize some folks across state, and I do that frequently with superintendents. So, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Chuck. Next up, we have Mike Lettingham, who's going to give an update on some RFPs that are technology related, that are getting ready to be put out, and ones that are in progress. So, Mike.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. I first want to say I think I fit right in with the Covington crew. I think I fit right in with that group right there.
You do.
So anyway, yeah, let me give an update. And I really can't say much about these, so I'm really just going to kind of list off some things that are going on and remind folks of these things that we have going on. We have the Kentucky Teacher Educator Certification System, which is an RFP activity that is in process and going on. And again, it's still in midstream of activities going on associated with that RFP. It's a big deal, big system, multiple things that make up the teacher educator certification system that we're pursuing and looking into there through an RFP process. We have the school community nutrition point of sale system that we're working with our folks, our partners at SCN in the KDE with, to pursue that solution. So it's, again, something to pay attention to, both from a technology standpoint, and obviously your food service leaders will obviously be interested in paying attention to that as well. We still have an infrastructure as a service RFP initiative that is still out there. Again, it's still in the middle of activities associated to that. So we'll be making progress on that right shortly as far as finishing that out and closing that one out. We have an upcoming networking products and services, obviously one that everybody's interested in paying attention to. That current contract, those current contracts expire in February of 2021. It is likely that we'll extend those just to allow ourselves to have a little bit more breathing room and really also to try to coincide with the fiscal year as far as the current contracts that will be expiring, as well as the new ones that will be going into place once we have that RFP out on the street. It's not out on the street yet, but it will be shortly. So that's an activity going on that everybody obviously, and we do, for sure know that we've got to have that those contracts in the hands of districts in time for their E-rate filing. So we're on a pretty tight timeline on that. So we'll be moving forward with that. Just a reminder of some recent things that we've done. Obviously, the last mile internet contracts are out there still yet. I think there's 8 of them total. So obviously reference those as you're doing things, if those can be of any value to you as you're looking at doing last mile internet solutions. The file server and storage was recent contracts that we awarded. Again, we've announced all of these previously. And then the instructional device units obviously were also contracts that were recently put in place over the last couple of months. So I think that's the RFP and contract information, David. Anything else you want me to hit on right now, or where you want to go next?
No, thank you. Thank you. Dee Dee, I'm going to ask you to talk next about what's going on with our data systems. I know with Infinite Campus and the school report card, and I know we have some training going on that's associated with those. So if you can give an update, and I know there was a note that IC sent out that you and Bob may want to clarify what that meant or didn't mean.
All right, glad to. Just kind of a quick start on the school report card, then we'll give Bob a chance to join me on this last part. But school report card is out. There is a new compare feature that is available. It's kind of a soft launch. We had told superintendents that it was coming in early November. It's now available. It will be expanded upon, and we're kind of waiting to provide more information on that when you have the ability to see trends and also compare functionality by multiple disaggregations or subgroups at the same time. Right now it's limited to just one, but we wanted everybody to know that that is now available. And we'll be rolling out probably in the next 2 weeks the additional functionality. So it's coming around pretty quickly. It didn't go out with the original release, but something we felt like was a strong add-on to the school report card going forward. It still is limited because there's just not that many assessments, for instance, this year to look at. So I think we'll see the real value add on that as we get additional assessments and can provide that level of view also. In addition to that, you mentioned the Infinite Campus training this week. It has started. It's the replacement for the interchange, which we normally do in early December. This year, we're having an online national training week. It's not just Kentucky. It's nationwide. And there have been some really good sessions. They started yesterday morning at 8 o'clock, and they go from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night every day this week. So if your district is taking advantage of those, and we did have a couple of questions out there that we might want to bring up, one of which is on the school report card. That is not my dog. Just in case anybody was wondering, that's not my dog. But if anybody wants to bring up those, Andy, if you want to bring up the question about the school report card and also Infinite Campus National Training Week, we can show those two. If Andy or Megan's doing that. I looked earlier and it did look like
Dee Dee, I got you.
Okay. Thanks. So it looks like a good number of districts were taking advantage of the National Training Week. It is something that if you have the capability of signing in a little bit late, it's still good. It's $499 for the whole week of training, and all those training resources are available to all of your staff. A lot of good stuff in there, so that is good. And then the second one, Marty, is the school report card. And just another reminder on the school report card, one of the ESSA requirements is that school report card be on the district and the school websites. So we've had quite a few districts that are saying that they've already done that. If you have not, or you're not sure yet, please make sure that gets done. I know that's a Title I requirement. So at some point we'll go in and try to at least look at the district level and follow back up. But it's always nice if we can find that most of them have already been done. There's not a need to follow up with anybody. So appreciate that. Now, the last thing that came out, and this is where Bob's going to help me a little bit on the more technical security side of things, is that Infinite Campus sent out a message over the weekend, and I think it happened about 4 o'clock on Sunday. They first got word of this. It is not impacting any of the Kentucky districts, but the reason it went out to all districts is that it could. And Bob, do you want to go into this part of it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
If you want to hit that.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm supposed to have a background up right now. I'm not sure exactly where it is, so everyone's seeing a great view of my subterranean layer right at the moment. So apologize about that. Maybe I should just go ahead and turn that off. So anyway, Dee Dee's absolutely right. Infinite Campus did send out an email. They saw from some of their customers, none in Kentucky, that they were falling prey to a phishing scam. And these were targeted attacks where very specific people in districts were being targeted with an email that looked as though it was from Infinite Campus asking them to log into their district website, their district instance of Infinite Campus. And I know a lot of districts have a link to Infinite Campus on their websites. And so these phishers, these crooks, would clone the district website and send the folks who were attacked to the cloned website where their credentials would be harvested. And so if your phishing game is on point, this is less of a concern for you. But if you are concerned about phishing, then I highly recommend that you look at Infinite Campus's recommendations and definitely take those to heart. Their basic recommendations were for everyone to turn on login alert notifications, and that is something where If you notice that someone is logging in or that your account is logging in from a device that it doesn't normally log in from, then you would get an email about that. And that seems reasonable. They also want everyone to audit the account permissions and make sure that only the folks that need all tools access, for example, have all tools access. And then lastly, they really wanted everyone to also think about enabling multi-factor authentication, especially for their admins or folks who've been tricked into giving up their credentials in the past, phishing victims. And I would add to that, one of the things that is really helpful for most users is to enable the yellow caution banners in email, so that if you get an email that isn't from a trusted source, then it'll have that yellow caution banner. That's a great way to tell if it's coming from some place outside of the district or outside of from a non-trusted entity. And then also, as we've said for a few years now, go ahead and try to set up DMARC, DKIM, and SPF to prevent those phishing and spam emails from getting into your district in the first place. I know none of those things are 100%, but good security relies on layered security and layered approach to this whole thing. And so our goal is to minimize the impact of these attacks by turning on these layers of security. So that's obviously a very quick summary of what's going on. If there are any questions, highly recommend you get in touch with Infinite Campus themselves. If you've not seen these emails from Infinite Campus, let us know or reach out to the folks in your district who work with Infinite Campus on a daily basis. And with that, DD and David, I'll turn it back to you guys.
Superintendent Garrison, I see your hand up. Is that on purpose? Did you want to say something? You were just accidentally put your hand up. I don't know if it's on purpose or not.
That may have been another high five.
It may have been another high five.
Like high five.
A high five for security.
So Superintendent Garrison, if you have something,
I just have a couple FYs, just real quick, just to wrap it up, and just in case it comes up. We do have opportunities for school report card feedback. If your district would like to have BDM, PTA, anybody like that, provide school report card feedback. Bright Bites is doing some feedback sessions, and we'll lead parents through those kind of discussions. We have opportunities still, if you're, check to make sure your district's taking advantage of it for online registration and for the campus learning. Both of those are free to districts, for, where you can care funds for that, and the training is available. Infinite Campus did extend the timeline for that, so there is additional time to take advantage of that training into 2021, where we originally were going to try to wrap it up in December. It just didn't seem reasonable with everything that's still going on. And high school feedback reports are out. That's been communicated, but those are produced by the Kentucky Stats. So their site is where you can download the PDFs as well as the interactive reports.
Thanks, Dee Dee.
All right.
Next session is, okay, gotcha. The next session we have is giving an update on CARES funding. We're not going to go through all of them, but Kermit Butcher mentioned about the Lightspeed Relay project. I'm going to ask Phil Coleman, who leads that service for us, the Lightspeed services, but the Lightspeed Relay initiative, to give a brief update on where we're at with that. So, Phil.
Sure. What a great conversation with two of our super partners that we have with Covington and with Jefferson County. And Superintendent Garrison, I am a big fan of super quotes. So when you said days of the future, I wrote that down. So that's going to be one of my super quotes going forward. If you don't care me using that, so appreciate it. With Lightspeed Relay, we had moved many services to the cloud, and we started this effort even before the COVID-19 epidemic actually hit us, and really, caused us to pivot to many cloud services that we currently have, and so we continue with that effort. And we have, to date, we have 474,000 relay aware computers or Chromebooks or other devices in our school districts already. So we have been moving all summer long to that cloud service that Lightspeed provides, and we also have phase 2 that we're working on, and that's called the analytics. And so we have many districts that have gone to that, and we have some December trainings. It's really important that you go to the trainings or watch the pre-recorded trainings of either of those phases, before you actually start to implement. So your KE will be able to tell you when those are and where the recordings are. The third phase, which is super important, and I kind of looked to Jefferson County as many devices that you have sent home, and trying to manage those with services that are on-prem. That's got to be very hard. So for school districts that really want to do this the right way and get into the cloud for relay and for content management, we are going to be, it really, let me put it this way, it really takes a little bit of work on our part and a little bit of work on your all's part going forward to make that happen, because it is a little bit of an architectural change. And so we're going to be doing some pilots in January, and we might actually do a pilot, Kermit, in December. So just to kind of wink at you and let you know that. But after we do the pilots, we'll have a really good handle on how much work that it's going to take from a district perspective and from our perspective, and how we will want to move forward in making that happen. So real excited to do that, and this really puts us in a good position going forward, David, whether we have NTI 3.0 or some version of that, even if the COVID epidemic kind of quiets down. So that's an update on that, and again, for the two guests that we have here today, the 4 guests that we have here today, really appreciate this conversation. It's been great. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. Marty, if you can put up there, I know we have one of the Go Soapbox questions was number 6. So if you could post that one so we could take a look at that with Phil giving an update on this one, which is where we're at with that one. So as
Yep, I forgot about that, David. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Just want to see kind of where it's at, see if it surprises us. Okay. So Phil, is that result? What do you think of those results there?
I think that's what we thought. I'm a little bit surprised at the number of no preference, and it doesn't matter. So we'll probably be working through our pilots in January, and then we'll try to schedule the ones that want to go in the spring. We can actually do a schedule like that and do the bulk of the work over the summer break. So, and we can even stretch it out a little bit further than that. But our goal is to get us into this what we call native mode, and do these architectural changes so that we have a common kind of infrastructure across the state.
Yep.
And just a reminder, we generally have 10 to 20 more responses. We have over 200 folks online, so
right.
we always use these responses, so it's really helpful for folks to give their feedback.
So next item is we had $212 million worth of CARES funding. The 2 districts we have on here, Covington and Jefferson County, are good examples of those that use that funding, portion of that funding, to address a large variety of things. The ESSER funds, the GEAR funds that were available out there, and even this $8 million in the last mile funding. I'm going to ask Mike. Mike, I don't know if you think we talked about this last month, so we don't need to go in detail. And I sent you the summary of last month that showed you the breakout. And I'm not sure there's been a significant, overwhelming change since that, unless you want to point that out. But we did have a very large number. I think it was 151 ish districts, maybe it was 140, that took advantage of all or portion of that. And I think we had some 20-some districts that said thanks, but no thanks. So there's
David,
So giving you the updated numbers, and,
Okay.
and Amy Maple, you're talking about the $8 million funding part of the last mile internet, correct?
Yes.
And so those numbers, a lot of districts that were in limbo did not continue to participate. So I do want to make sure we give the accurate numbers. So 116 districts participated in the $8 million funding program, have approved plans, have approved funding at this point right now, as you can see there, for a total of $5.7 million, $5.6 million. And then we've got 6 districts that are still outstanding as far as have plans that have not yet completely been approved, or the funding hasn't been approved yet. That's a small, again, 6 districts, about $73,000 is part of that. And then we have 49 districts. I know there's a few numbers in that bottom section there, but essentially 49 districts and also KSB and KSD that will not be participating in the $8 million funding program for the last mile internet. So those are the latest up-to-date numbers associated to the participation in the program.
Okay. So, this was the one funding source that just a reminder that expires on December of 2020. It really, and we found out about its availability at the third week, close to the fourth week of August. To be honest with you, we made much more progress than I would anticipate in that short period of time. And it could be used mainly for students beyond the school campus, although there were some that use it to beef up their school campus. And so appreciate those. We want to give you an update on that, and I'll be making the state budget office aware of the funds we talked about last time, of a variety of other ways to use it before the cutoff date that could perhaps benefit all districts or a large portion of them. So we'll be pursuing that. So I wanted to give you a quick update. So I'm going to bring up my screen, and I want to share with you a couple of things that are related to the KET initiative, but also related to all the things we've been talking about. So y'all can see this, I'm assuming?
We got it.
Yes, David.
Okay. All right, good. So this is a link that I've sent you all multiple times. If you've not opened it, this is what it looks like. This is a survey that Katie, the agency, did back in the June-July timeframe, where we asked, close to 57,000 parents and caregivers a variety of questions. And you can see the access to technology was one of them. And here's the chunks. And if you pay attention with me talking about it, the last mile to the student, I've referenced these, and I've also crosswalked those. This is a separate independent survey that was done from what we're doing with the heartbeat data and even what we're doing with digital readiness. So it's totally separate, and you have the ability to actually see what your district particularly answered, your parents did. But these are the numbers we saw across the state. You saw that they said they have internet access for distance learning. Oops, I didn't mean to go there. See here, I clicked there too much far into that chart here. Let me go back. Nope. Try to go back to the workbook here. There we go. Sorry about that. So you can see to where there was only 3% said that they did not have internet access to do remote learning at their home, and they didn't have any means at all. Another 1.4% said they went to a neighbor's house or somebody close by, and another 1% down here said to a public place. And you can see here there's 8.2% that said they had multiple locations and at the home, and you're talking about the devices. Now this was once again was back in the June timeframe. 4.5% said none, and then there was a question here about the reliability of it. So they have it, but sometimes it was never really defined, and no, or my child does not have it. So this is some of the crosswalk that I do, that you can do as well with our numbers. But you can see that really community, I talked about, later, a little bit earlier, about what has made these significant jumps. And yes, there could be things where I think something was set up in a firehouse or someplace they went nearby, but that's going to make a very, very, very tiny percentage difference. And every percentage is important, but it's going to make a very tiny. It wouldn't explain, for example, a 50% jump in a district from 1 month to the next. So, the discussion I had yesterday with our field staff, just trying to understand what has led to this. Is the accurate numbers? Is it hot spots have come in? What would explain it? So we've also been in discussions with KET recently, and this is an article that came out. You can see within the past couple of days, and it's talking about an older technology that can still be used for a very positive thing. And when I looked through the scanning of this document, it appears that South Carolina's already done this and Indiana's already done this. And to give you a little bit of background, this is the Kentucky Educational Television Network. It has 16 transmitters throughout Kentucky, and this is where its signal hits. It has about 90% of Kentuckians at their home can receive an over-the-air digital signal. So we're not talking about something that comes through the wire. We're talking about wireless for the technology that I'm getting ready to share with you. So it's not a 100% solution. But, for example, we looked at a couple of districts yesterday in Western Kentucky that had, their district had a much higher percentage than that 3% that didn't have internet access beyond the school campus. And so we're taking a look at what could be a possible solution for those that get a digital signal, from KET. They're in a situation where they're a district that has, 10% or more other students that don't have internet beyond the school campus. So this is one of the things. There was a pretty good crosswalk of that, so it's not a 100% solution. And so we looked at it. This is a device that actually is in the home, and obviously there's a component that's at Kentucky Educational Television. It's their next generation television, is what they call ATSC 1.0 and 3.0. Now 1.0 has been around for a while, and 3.0 is fairly new, but has some great promise. As the KT staff talked about, is along with every technology have some tremendous upsides, you also have to weigh what its limitations are. This is, as I put in the Go Soapbox question, I think to phrase it is, it's asynchronous, so it's not really meant for synchronous for 8 straight hours, which is not necessarily a good solution anyway. It goes at 1 megabits per second. Use existing digital wireless to the student's home. Could be a nice solution to download schoolwork and materials, so it keeps them from having to drive in to sync their thumb drives. And it's a situation where they have 0 wired or wireless options at all for their home. I mean, there's no providers for each one of those, probably with the exception of satellite that's out there. And it really prevents them from having to come in and get paper packets. And we talked about earlier, there are X% of parents, it's not a huge percentage, but it's just a very small percentage that don't want anything but paper. And even when electronic hotspots offered to them, they're not picking up for a variety of reasons and staying with paper. But this is a device that would go to the home. And then once again, this is a short and long term. We're looking at doing a pilot with maybe 100 of these devices in the short term, and taking a look at how do we, is it to be a major player? Would it be of value? And this is for really NTI beyond this school year as well. As we heard from Jefferson County and Covington, what they're trying to do in the interim, they're trying to say, does it make a long-term impact? This could help out in the longer term, as when we go back to where companies are no longer paying for it, because previously to the pandemic, we had a very high percentage of parents that were paying, if they had an option, and there's a very high percentage that did, they were paying for that service to the home, regardless of their income level. And that's where we went to the 9 or 15% that were already doing that didn't have it, but we had somewhere between 85 to 91% that did across this state. So sometime we're going to go back to where probably the biggest burdens will be held, financial burden, is by the parents paying for it, or some other access. It's a community thing for the community to help address it. And previous to the pandemic, we only had we had less than 10 districts, or 10 or less, that were involved with paying for internet access beyond the school campus, mainly because financially it's very difficult to sustain. And even those that did it, it wasn't for a huge population of students, but typically a subset of population of students. So this could be a possible solution for the NTI going forward, or a homebound student going forward with a device that's out there. For our staff, the OET staff that was part of that yesterday, is there anything else that I need to mention that you all saw? I just want to introduce it to you, and I have a couple of Go Soapbox questions I'd like to bring up while they're commenting. Let's go to, Marty, if you can bring up questions 1, 2, and 3. We'll just go right down the line there, and these are all related. So this is, is where, and this is important data, as Chuck talked about, really super important data that we're collecting, and really want to try to make sure that as close as possible to the accuracy as we can. And so we feel it's being fine-tuned, so you feel it's very good or good for now. Still work in progress. So I appreciate those.
Great news. This is great news, especially 25 responses from district leaders that feel pretty good about the way we're collecting it. So we'll want to continue regionally to learn from that. Yes,
that's encouraging. That's encouraging.
David, I'm going to go to question number 2.
Yeah, please do. So we're in motion to be working with KET, and so really the significance of your response is pretty important here today. Of how you view this is just not an interim solution that we may pilot, at the beginning of this school year with X number of you that say, I think this could fit a niche for us, but also in the longer term, in those situations to where you're having students that are driving a long distance away, just to do a synchronization during NTI or homebound. This would eliminate that. The speeds are pretty great going downward, so this is one way, keep in mind. And I don't know if I mentioned that before, the technology is mainly focused on schoolwork and materials that can be sent one way from the teacher to the student.
I really like to think of this, David, that KET shared yesterday from the terminology of data casting and that one-way download from a student's perspective of content. Very similar strategy when we compare to packaging content on flash drives.
Yep. So that's encouraging. So let's go to number 3, and our last question of the day.
And this, I love that we're ending on this question, David, because this gets to some of what our Covington team shared and what our JCPS team shared.
Yeah.
So the student engagement while participating in remote learning is kind of our next big frontier for us to ensure that we are continuing to what we would think of level up and continue to develop our superpowers here. And so the 3 districts who responded that they feel very good with feedback from parents. We definitely want to touch and get connected there, along with the 14 districts who responded pretty good. And it's great to see that 57% of our EdTech leaders responding feel like it's acceptable. It's going well in that perspective.
So I'd ask our field staff and ask you to reach out to your CATS engineer of your region, of your district, if you're interested in being a pilot for this. And obviously, just your interest in general for your district in the interim and the long term, but a pilot for this going forward. So thank you for letting me introduce that. We're trying to talk about KISTI. KISTI is still going forward, even after do some things in a different way this year. But I'm going to give Greta, I'd like for you to give you a chance to talk about the upcoming award nominations that you would like to announce. Maybe we have Greta Casto on here. Greta, you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Can.
Awesome. Okay, well, I just want to take just a second or two. Of all years in the history of ever, to be able to showcase some teachers of doing technological instruction with their students, this year would be the year. But it's not just the teachers, it's the administrators, it's the tech people. We've talked about that this entire time that we've been on here. about how it's been more work for everyone, and this, sometimes we have a really hard time getting nominations for these. We've changed it from outstanding to impact. We did that last year, but again, that's a perfect word to use for this year. Teachers that have impacted kids, technology staff that has impacted kids, administrators that have enabled the impact of kids. So on the KISTI website, there's if you go there to kisti.org, at the top, there is a drop down for awards, and there are 4 awards that we give. One is the Impact Leader, which is going to be an administrator. One is the Impact Teacher, which is going to be a teacher, and that's that term teacher is an all-inclusive term. So that's going to get your library media specialists, and that's going to get anybody that is a certified person that's helping deliver instruction. And there's a detailed definition of what teacher includes on that page. And then we have an Impact Technical Support person. And of course, our coveted Making IT Happen, which there's several people on the call here that have gotten that award before, and that is actually an ISTE award, and that would be our Kentucky nomination for that award. But since KISTI is going to be a little bit different this next year, we're going to do it. We're going to announce in the spring, and we'll have to probably work with KDE to do that, since we'll probably all be virtual still and not be able to do face-to-face. But there's more of that coming. So please, from between now and the end of January, I believe we've put it as January 29th. That's when we're going to close nominations. It's just a simple Google form. Please consider every single district in this state should nominate people for this, especially this year. We've got people that are killing themselves. So somebody please take the time in your district and nominate some people. We also, I'm just going to put a little shout out there for the STLP scholarships are also up and open. If you are the CIO of your district, if you could just pass that information along to your high school counselors, get it on your web pages, make sure your STLP kids know about it, because that's money that's just sitting there waiting to help somebody. So I appreciate the time. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'm the only, there's I think 2 castos in the state that are in education, and the other one's my husband. So if you'll send us an email, we'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks so much for the time.
Yeah, Greta, thank you. Thank you what KISTI does. I mentioned a little bit earlier that the annual feedback from our districts is due. We're going to shift it from the 1st to the 15th of December. That information is just so crucial. It helps us to see, did we stay on target to the things we should have done the past year? What didn't we do that we should have done or didn't do well? And what did we do well? And I know a lot of the focus has been on the COVID situation, but as we talked, a lot of the goals that we had in education technology, it didn't really divert from them, it accelerated them. But there's plus and minuses associated with that. And what should our goals be for the next calendar year? This is valuable for me to use. We have so many new leaders at the agency to give them, where are we in step with what districts want to go? This allows me to verify that with legislators as we begin the session in January, and a lot of other different groups. So it is just valuable, and I share it back. So it's not like we get it, we don't share it. We get it back. We don't share it necessarily individually, but collectively, what did we hear back from you? And we do that in the January timeframe. Is there anything else that came up in Go Soapbox that we need to hit upon? I'm going to stay on for another 15 or 20 minutes after we log off here for those that like to talk. I know we had one of the discussion questions of what unique ways you're going to try to celebrate and recognize Thanksgiving, given the physical distancing and that we're having to do, and all the other necessary precautions that we're having to take. I did list, I wanted to go through with my own staff of the things I'm personally very thankful for. I don't wait for a specific day, but I'm going to call the month of thanks. And there's a long list of things I'm very thankful for despite this. And I mentioned one of those a little bit earlier about what we're doing. But, for me, it's also a difficult time. We usually meet right at my house with all my family. And we usually have, my mom and my wife's parents with us. We won't be able to do that this year, but we're going to do something, and then we'll have a virtual option too. It won't be we're broadcasting out for 2 hours, but maybe 10 or 15 minutes we check in with them all. And I know it's not the ideal way. So I just asked our staff that was taking a look at the Go Soapbox, any kind of question pop up here before we close out, or unique thing that we'd like to share to the whole group before we just kind of go offline here and just talk less formally.
David, our team has done an awesome job of responding to some of the other questions that have come in. If you get a chance, check out the discussion on some fun Thanksgiving non-traditional plans.
Okay.
There's some nice.
Well, I think what we'll do is once we sign off here, for those that stay around, I'd like for someone to share some of those, and so I'll formally sign off here and just have a little bit less formal as we go on. So I'd like to thank our districts that joined us today. Thank you, Covington Independent. Thank you, Jefferson County Schools. We'll highlight one or two other districts next month and give us the heartbeat from what they were doing. It's very helpful, and it was always helpful to kind of interact with them. Thank you for everyone. I do hope you all have a wonderful upcoming Thanksgiving celebration in your own unique way. We'll see you next month. Take care.